Hello and welcome, crime fighters, to Diecast Restos. I'm Jason, and once again I'm taking on a Corgi Batmobile, but this time it's a later Whizzwheels version. I have learnt a lot from my previous efforts, so hopefully this rebuild will plug any gaps from that last video. Where that one was an original mid to late 1960s version with the hubs and rubber tyres, this has the hard black plastic wheels that were introduced in 1976. These also came with a cast tow hook in order to pull along the Batboat. While this is a shot of the real Batmobile, here's a recap of the transition from my previous instructional video. I was pleased with that outcome. In that video, I went into detail about the history of Batman, the Batmobile, the real Batmobile vehicle, and the ins and outs of Corgi's model version. Today, I'll try and describe each process as we go through the dismantling, cleaning, painting, and reassembly phases. The metal base is connected to the body via 6 rivets that needed centre punching and drilling out with a 5mm bit. The flame on this model differs to the older one, as it no longer pops in and out with the turning of the rear wheels. This is due to the presence of that tow hook. The chain cutter on this model needs replacing entirely. All of the components that form the chain cutter mechanism were correct and present though. As is usually the case, the suspension had broken, but luckily the loose parts were still tucked inside. The steering wheel and dash are perfectly reusable, but the same can't be said of the canopy. To remove the rocket launcher mechanism and cockpit piece, I drill out the 3 rivets holding it in using a blunt 5mm drill bit. So this model actually belongs to John Silva, a viewer who got in touch with me on Instagram asking if I could rebuild his Batmobile. John's model is from around 1976, so far as I could work out, as the wheels are the plastic chrome hub type with 12 spokes on each. Some earlier Whizzwheels models had 8 spokes or red plastic tyres for a brief period. The wheels were later widened and had deeper treads before the model went out of production in 1983 after 17 years of manufacture. My method to later reconnect body to base is to drill out and tap the rivet posts. I use a 1.5mm drill bit on the 4 main body posts. The same for the cockpit section, though they also require an M2 washer. Each post is lubricated with brake fluid and then threaded with an M2 screw tap. And here you can see the result of the test fit. While others glue their rebuilds back together, I like to use flat laptop screws, just in case I ever want to open it back up easily in future. Now John has that option too once it's back in his hands. You'll often see me using caustic soda and boiling water to strip the paint in my smaller scale builds. Because the Batmobile is so long and I don't have a bowl large enough, I've used liquid paint stripper on it, which works just as well. It's just a bit more messy. After the paint remnants have dissolved, I thoroughly brush over every surface using some steel wire wheel attachments for my rotary tool. Not only does this blitz all of the tiny flecks of paint that have been left behind, it also roughs up the bare cast metal body. It removes the veneer of zinc oxide, allowing the primer more surface area to adhere to later on. But before we lay down the first doses of primer, I give all of the salvageable components a wash in warm soapy water. With the interior piece cleaned, I can now reattach the suspension pieces that had snapped off. They are stuck on with clear Gorilla Superglue gel. I wanted to reuse as many parts as I reasonably could to retain the originality of John's model, hence why I'm attempting to fix these rocket tubes that were in an awful state. Now though, it's primer time. I love that cast comic book Batman. It's such a great touch by the Corgi designers. While the body has come out looking decent after a single coat, the base had a few rough edges that needed ironing out, particularly along the sills. On this occasion, I've used a standard gloss black. I liked the semi-gloss I used last on my father-in-law Phil's older example. However, the finish on the base after a clear coat was not up to scratch, so I chose to leave the body uncoated. This time I opted for gloss, as these finishes are how later models appeared. I've certainly learnt a lot from my, not mistakes, but findings from my previous experiences. As the base requires no further detail, it gets a clear coat. Another improvement is the addition of a thick base for the headlight yellow. Before, I directly applied this with my paint pen, but the black still managed to seep through. Molotochrome is far more resilient and a lot thicker, so I used that as a solid base this time. I also use it to retrim the other chrome pieces. The rocket launcher wheel, chain cutter actuation button, and the chain cutter itself are all given a light blast with Tamiya's metallic gold. There's no need to prime these pieces. This is my reproduction chain cutter from Steve Flowers Model Supplies. All parts aside from the side bat symbol stickers came from here. I'll leave links in the video description. With the yellow headlights applied and set, the body gets coated with Mr. Hobby Top Coat Gloss. Here are the stickers. They're far better than those paper labels I used in the last video, in my opinion. They're very glossy looking, plus you get 4 in a set, which is great, especially if you cock one up. One more lesson from last time is that the Repro canopies have a pre-molded beacon that requires colour to make it more authentic. A couple of coats and this should look spot on. With that, let's start putting John's Batmobile back together. The gold beacon cage and chrome plated indicators are reproductions, seeing as they had been long lost with the rest of the canopy. Notice the bat phone is still in situ. If you're following along to these instructions, it's important that you do exactly as I do here, otherwise the chain cutter won't function properly. The hooked end must grab the end of the spring. It may take a few attempts, but you should start to see it working as it falls into place. The reproduction antenna sits very loosely in the back, so I use a little Yoo-Hoo clear adhesive to secure it. The rocket tubes do sit loosely inside, as does the control wheel. Instead of tapping these short inner posts, I use some more Yoo-Hoo adhesive. They could be drilled and tapped, I suppose, but after 6 it becomes a bit wearisome. The cockpit section will then push fit and stick inside nicely. Then it's the turn of the steering wheel and dashboard duo. The dash was in great condition, so other than a wash, it is as it was. Here's another key moment. The spring for the cutter has to face the same direction as I'm showing here, else it will not work. Now the axles can rest on the suspension pieces before the reproduction tow hook and conjoined afterburner piece is inserted. Introduce the base at this angle in order to catch that raised chain cutter spring. Now's a good time to test it out before doing up all those screws. Here are all 6 screws, remembering that the central 2 also require washers. Finally, Robin finds his perch. This was how John's Batmobile was looking when he sent it over to me. Parts wise, it's in far worse condition than Phil's was from my last Batmobile video. That felt worse in some ways though, due to those crumbly tired old rubber tyres. So much of this Batmobile was in bad shape, but John trusted me with his model to put it right. It needed a new canopy, beacon cage, indicator, antenna, chain cutter, tow hook and dynamic duo. But here's the result after all of those new parts, plus a whole host of repairs. I prefer the gloss black over the semi-gloss I used last time, I must admit. The bright stickers are also a marked improvement. I don't mind the chrome whiz wheels as much as I initially thought, though the bat symbol hubs are my favourites by some margin. I'm really not a fan of that tow hook, but I get the need for it following the addition of the Batboat. You wouldn't see Batman requiring those practical solutions in the comics, but you probably would in the 60s TV show, come to think of it. I've got some footage of the 60s Batmobile in the video outro, set to some non-proprietary music, so do stay tuned for that. I hope John likes his restored Batmobile. If you're a fan, please leave the video a like and put your thoughts in the comments. Also, please subscribe if you haven't already. But all that leaves me to say is thanks for watching, and I'll see you again for the next one. Bye for now.